So, in the past year and a half, roughly, I believe it was June of last year that we saw the first major change to the tournament policy in quite a few years. I believe before that it was 2013 or 2014. That had been the last update. So, with regards to the update to end of match procedure, as well as a few other updates that we had in a recent change, how has that changed your tournament experience, and how do you feel about these changes?
Okay,
As somebody who's playing at a very high level, or has in the past,
sure.
it has more of an impact.
Yeah, I have quite a bit to say on the matter of the new end of match procedures. I promise I won't just go into the standard, I hate it and it's terrible, like a lot of players are doing, but I'll try to give a very thoughtful review of what I've seen so far. Personally, for me as a player, I think it has hurt my game in that I've lost more games to the end of match procedure that I could have otherwise won than I have won games due to the end of match procedures that I otherwise would have lost. So personally, it has hurt me, but my comments on that will not be based on that one anecdotal set of experiences. So my comments on the new end of match procedures, I guess it helps to kind of start with a framework. So if you were to picture a spectrum of end of match procedures, and on one end of the spectrum, it's as soon as time is called, you don't even finish the phase. You just count life points, and then whoever has the most life points when time is called wins. And then on the other side of the spectrum is there is no time, and you let players play indefinitely. And then all along this spectrum, there's different ways to cut off the end of the match. You can have 4 turns like we used to have. You can have 1 phase like we have now. And so these are all different points along the spectrum, right? And on this far end of no end of match procedures and just infinite play, the person who's supposed to win always wins the match, right? Then on this end of the spectrum, you have the most upsets in theory, because these players are stopped right away and have nothing else they can do. And so deciding on the right set of end of match procedures is about finding that proper point in the midpoint of the spectrum that gives you the shorter tournament day that Konami and the players want, because we don't want to be here until midnight.
I mean, the organizer pays for the venue, and when you go over the time that you are paying for, it becomes very expensive.
Right, it's expensive. So yeah, on one hand, we want to get close enough to this end spectrum so that we're not taking forever to finish every round and paying all the extra money for the venue. We also want to go a little bit further towards this end of the spectrum, close enough that the rightful winner of the duel wins the duel as much as possible. So obviously we can't do one end of the spectrum because tournaments will take forever. We can't do the other end because then players will be upset and unhappy. And so then the question becomes, what is the right point? We found that with the 4-turn point on the spectrum, it was a little bit too long. Tournaments were taking too long.
It was fine for the game in its infancy when matches were shorter and turns were shorter.
Right.
But when you're wombo comboing.
Yeah, YuGiOh has fundamentally become a new game essentially.
Yeah.
And so where Konami is right now is that we are on this extreme. So we're not so far that we just compare life points when time is called, but we are very close to that point. We're finishing just the current phase. And so when you're at this end of the spectrum, that you're sacrificing a lot from the rightful winner of the duel actually winning the duel enough a sufficient percentage of the time. So that's one kind of dimension to look at. And then the other dimension is how much time do you save with each incremental match procedure that you establish along this spectrum. So if jumping from here to here saves multiple hours of the tournament day, but jumping from here to here doesn't save any time at all, and there's no reason to have end of match procedures all the way here if we can have a rule set here that saves the same amount of time, right? And so on that dimension, we want to kind of ask ourselves, what is the bottleneck for tournaments finishing? And this is where a little bit of anecdotal evidence comes in, is what I'm personally seeing is that it's oftentimes a few, if not just one match that is holding up an entire round. And so that is usually due to a time extension and is not the product of the end of match procedures themselves. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is the true bottleneck? So if that's the actual bottleneck, then it doesn't technically hurt us or tangibly hurt us to kind of shift the end of match procedures closer towards giving a little bit more time at the end of the match, maybe a turn per player, something to that effect, so that more duels can be decided by the rightful winner,
by a more
winning.
accurate.
More accurate outcomes without sacrificing from the duration of the tournament itself. So what I'm personally witnessing as I travel from event to event is that for many or even most rounds, the bottleneck is not the end of match procedures currently, but rather it's that one or small handful of matches that have a time extension due to like a ruling appeal.
Or investigation.
Investigations, definitely investigations when he said, she said situations. So with that said, I think we don't sacrifice anything if we were to shift the end of match procedures closer towards the end of the spectrum where the rightful winner wins the duel. And so speaking in concrete terms, what that means is giving a little bit more than one phase in the end of match procedures, whether that's one turn per player, 2 turns per player, or whatever it is you can test and deliberate. But right now as it stands, it's very, very far on that extreme.
You think too much has been lost in favor of shortening the tournament.
Right, it's diminishing returns, right? Like from here to here, we gain a lot of time, save a lot of time in the tournament. But I think we've gotten so far where we're getting very diminishing returns, where the time that we save from how early we can leave the venue is not very significant compared to how many upsets are taking place as a result of only one phase being allowed.
So during last question, you mentioned about YuGiOh basically being a brand new game. Now there is Speed Duel, which has been released about a year ago at this stage, and it was being tested before that. But have you spent any time with that? Obviously, it kind of tends more towards the classic feel that people would look for. Do you have any thoughts or interactions with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Speed Duel is a good attempt on Konami's part to kind of make the game accessible to brand new players, because at the end of the day, whether you're casual or competitive, you want new players coming in. If I won't name names, if you look at other competitive games where the community is entirely comprised of veterans and there's no new market entering in, like those.
I mean, Versus System and YTCG, I think
I mean, if we're gonna name games, like the one I had in mind was like Smash Bros. Melee, for instance. Like that's a game that.
The actual.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about that game. Like I played it competitively growing up, and so that games like those where like it's a very guarded community because it's all veterans. They can't really grow organized play, and so we need to have new players coming in for the game to grow. And so even if you don't care about speed duels and the casual side of things, you still want it to succeed, and that's kind of where I am. Like as a competitive player, speed duel is not very relevant to me because that's not what YCSs are competing in. At the same time, I do think it's good. I think it's good for the game. I think it's important to make the game accessible to new players so that they can one day become part of organized play and kind of learn more complex stuff.
And that's a really important point that a lot of players I've talked to seem to miss, is that Speed Duel isn't a product for us. Like, if you are an enfranchised player and you are playing at YCSs and regionals and nationals and so on and so forth, you don't need the Speed Duel experience. And if they overcomplicate it, then it loses the point of being an accessible product.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Even outside of YuGiOh, that principle is true in a lot of areas where if you try to make one size fits all, sometimes that size fits nobody. And so, to get to that point, we shouldn't try to make Speed Duel overly complicated. Like, it should serve the purpose that it's designed to serve, which is to pull in players and make the game accessible. And then one day they can upgrade to advanced constructed.
So we see Duel Devastator coming out soon, and it's reprinting a bunch of very staple and core cards in the format. What's your thoughts on products like this? Because I think this is the first time that we've seen something that just says, it's as close to kind of a living card game almost as YuGiOh has ever really gotten.
Well, I think my thoughts here would echo what I said about speed duels, where you have the casual player base that you want to be a part of the game because they will indirectly help the competitive player base eventually. And similarly, the most competitive players don't care that much about reprints. Like they have the cards they need, or they don't play reprinted cards anyway. But at the same time, we still have to be happy about these kinds of releases because, again, like Speed Duels, it's making the game more accessible. In this case, just further along on the competitive spectrum, it's making the competitive game more accessible to more players. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want these tournaments to thrive and grow so that we can keep enjoying a robust, organized play system. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see that Konami's working on these kinds of products that have a lot of reprints. And I know that some would be upset about how it might hurt the secondary market, especially those whose maybe livelihoods depend on the game. And Konami, I don't envy the position that they're in as far as they have to try to appease everyone, and it's not easy. And I definitely give them credit for doing their best. And we can't satisfy everyone, but on the whole, I think these products are good.
They also are going to be the first set of really playable alt art cards that we're going to see in the TCG.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have like the anniversary pack, so you have your Blue Eyes, and then we also saw, I guess, Warlord and that set of Code of the Duelist cards printed recently. But none of those are going to be as played as Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring or the other hand traps. So what do you feel about alt arts kind of making it to the TCG?
So to kind of talk some more theory and psychology, so my answer to that would kind of start with this idea of 4 types of kind of customers that you want to target, whether it's with a card game or the software or any product you make. There's kind of 4 personality types when it comes to customers that I think are important to reach. So, and we color code them, but you can call them whatever you want. So you have red customers who are very competitive, and they're the ones that you want to give products that help them feel accomplished and that help them to achieve. So that would be things like very high rarity, very hard to get cards, like the new
prismatics.
Yeah,
well, they're not prismatic secrets, but the unnamed rarity.
The new nameless rarity would be something that appeals to red customers.
Yeah.
And then you have green customers who want their money's worth. They just want a good deal. People who are green.
Solomon Great Structure deck.
Yes, or like back in the day, the Monarch Structure deck. That appeals tremendously to green people because they just want good monetary value. Then you have yellow customers who just care about relationships and people. And so for them, you want to market to them a product that just brings people together. Games that can involve, or I guess like products that can involve more than one person, for instance. Like let's say one day Konami comes out with like some kind of like group product.
Tag dueling?
Tag dueling, sure. You can come out with like a tag dueling like box set of some kind. I don't know. That's up to Cube. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, there's so many good ideas. But yellow people are the customers who just want to come together, and they're all about people, and they play Yu-Gi-Oh for the people. And so for them, you want to make products like that. And then lastly, there's blue people, and blue customers are the creative customers, and so they're the ones you want to make alternate art cards for. So back to your question, yeah, I think alternate art is great because Konami is acknowledging that in this card game there are a lot of blue-minded shoppers who they probably don't care about having the highest rarity card or care about getting their money's worth necessarily or being competitive or any of that, but they just love the artwork of Yu-Gi-Oh, and they're probably the ones who pay a little bit more attention to the anime. And so for them, you wanna make sure that you give them.
That actually touches off. I don't know if you read many of the design articles from Magic the Gathering. But
I haven't.
So they have the concepts of Timmy, Johnny, and Spike.
Oh yeah, of course.
So we'll link that article below because it actually covers a lot of
that
kind of ideas.
It's a very similar philosophy. Yeah.